So these are the 5 areas of engagement on your campus that we know because of watching your successes, sometimes watching your failures, watching how the movement works, watching how women are served, and watching how people change their minds on this issue. These are the 5 areas that you have to include when you do outreach on campus, and they are effective education, industry impact, public policy, rapid response, and supportive services. And so we thought today the best way to kind of like go through these is to bring out some of the experts in these areas. And so I'm going to bring a panel of guests up, and they're each going to talk about the particular pillar that they engage in with their organization. And then I'm going to throw a few questions at them that we get a lot when we talk about these 5 areas of engagement. So first, I want to welcome to stage Jorel Godsey. Jorel is the president of Heartbeat International. I don't know if you guys know Heartbeat International, but they actually oversee hundreds of pregnancy resource centers across the country. Welcome, Jorel. And Jorel is going to be talking about supportive services today, because we know we can't just tell her, don't have an abortion. We have to tell her, well, you know what? I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to give you resources, and I'm going to help you make a life choice. So thank you, Jorel, for joining us. Next, I want to welcome Reverend Patrick Mahoney from the Christian Defense Coalition. Patrick! Reverend Mahoney is going to be talking about rapid response. Where's your hot tea? He's a diva, oh my gosh. So Pat has been arrested a cajillion times because he rapidly responds to things, social injustice. He is willing to go out there and be a voice. And I'm not telling you to get arrested like Reverend Mahoney, but he has some really great words of wisdom to impart to you, so I'm really excited to have him here. Next, I have Tyson Langhofer from Alliance Defending Freedom. I don't know. Raise your hand if you've ever talked to an Alliance Defending Freedom attorney for some reason or another. No, give me a shout out if you have. Yeah. So ADF has got our back, and we're thankful for the work that they do for us. And he's going to talk about public policy. This is kind of one of the icky, sticky areas of the 5 pillars, because sometimes it's not comfortable to talk about politics or legislation, but we must, because we can't just say, don't have an abortion, here's help. We actually have to change laws, because changing laws, changing legislation changes minds. Next, I have Abby Johnson from And Then There Were None. I know I need to be like, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. I don't have that voice. I can't do that. But that's what I do. Abby helps people leave the abortion industry. And she's going to be talking about industry impact. We know that we have to help her choose life. We have to respond in the public platform. We have to have legislation and politicians in place to advance the cause of life. But we also have to help those workers who are there every day doing this job and who are stuck and lost and need our love and support. But we also need to work on shutting down the abortion clinics, hurting the abortion industry through all kinds of different means. So, and more of that's going to come in later workshops too, about how do we impact the abortion industry. And then last but not least, Kristen Hawkins, the president of Students for Life. She's going to be taking on effective education. So I have a funny story about one of our regional coordinators. When she was in high school, she went to a Catholic high school, and it was the year at the March for Life. I don't know if any of you remember this. They were passing out those buttons that said, I'm pro-life, ask me why. And she got one, and she was like, I'm putting that in my backpack. Because she was so afraid of someone to actually go like, oh, so why are you pro-life? Because she didn't know how to answer the question well. And so we know with effective education, not only do we need to know how to talk about abortion, but we need to know how to talk to our peers and get them effectively educated about abortion. So we're just going to rapid fire through these different pillars.
One mic drop, literally.
Mic drop, literally, yeah. So we're going to go through these pillars, and then I'm going to come back out and ask a few questions that we get from you guys when we go through the pillars. So Kristen.
I know you've seen me in such a long time. If I wasn't bossy already, get ready for more. Okay, so since I went over, Tina always knows I go over. It was better than last year, so I'm doing good. I'm going to keep this short. Effective education, duh. Okay? Duh. We need to tell more people about the injustice of abortion. We need to tell more people about why we are against abortion, what abortion does to that innocent child in the womb, what abortion does to that mother, what abortion does to that father, to that family, to our nation. And I think sometimes in the pro-life movement, we're living this. We have the fetal models in our purses and our book bags. You should. We have the baby socks attached to our book bags. We should have the Students for Life postcards in our pockets at all times. I met somebody from Western University, I'm so excited for my home state, who actually had a binder yesterday, who was out at the Supreme Court with his binder having arguments and discussions with people. So he was ready. We need to be able to talk about abortion. And I think that's one of the scariest things for a lot of us when we become pro-life. We're like, yeah, I'm pro-life, I get it, but I don't know. What if I don't know the answer? And let me just tell you right now, you're not always going to know the answer. You're going to mess up. You're going to say the wrong thing. I have this thing like, what would Josh Brahm say? That's always in my mind. I was giving these talks this summer, this fall on the Lies That Feminists Tell tour. And so often the question and answers were, usual arguments do you receive on college campuses? And I do it, and a couple of them, at Harvard, we live streamed it. At Dartmouth, we took some good video. And the whole time I was like, crap, what would Josh Brahm say? He's going to send me an email. Tell me, that was okay, Kristen, but in the future, you might want to consider. So even I, who've been doing this for like 11 years, I've been in the pro-life movement for more than 16 years now, know that I need more education. I need to educate myself so I can be better, so I can talk more eloquently about this issue, so I can be more convincing. I think when we talk about effective education within the pillars, with what you're doing on campuses, I think there's two things we need to work on. One is we need to change what they know. This fall, how many of you had our Abortion is Violence tour? How many of you saw our Abortion is Violence tour? So our Abortion is Violence tour is very simple. It just describes what happens in abortion. And I remember when we were brainstorming this at the office, one of the questions I had was, is this going to be effective? Like, are the student groups going to want to do this? What the response of students are going to be on campus? It was amazing because it was that duh moment. We had to get back to basics because so many people came up to us on campuses and were like, that's what happens during abortion? And I'm like, duh, aren't you on my Facebook feed? Don't you get all the emails from Created Equal? But no, they don't, because they don't live it like we do. They don't eat, breathe, and sleep abolishing abortion like we do. There's a whole world of people out there who fundamentally do not understand what happens in abortion, and we can't take that for granted. So we have to constantly be getting back to basics, talking about field development, talking about what happens during the abortion procedure. So we have to change what they know. And the second thing is we have to change what they think about us. Often in the pro-life movement, I hear these things of like messaging. We need to stand for 15 different issues. We need to talk about stuff because we need to make people know that we care. Let me tell you what's going to happen. You're in a discussion with someone on campus. You're having a dialogue with them. Hopefully you've hosted a Students for Life tour, and they'll say, "Well, you don't care about kids who need homes." And you answer that question. So actually I do. My 2 nephews were adopted. My cousins were adopted. I would love to be an adopted parent, right? You answer their question. You show them that you're a human being, that you love children, that you're compassionate. And then they go, "Well, what about overpopulation?" And you answer that question. "Well, actually, there's no such thing as overpopulation. Let me tell you. Here, actually, I have a postcard." Then the next thing is, "Well, what about rape?" They don't actually care what you have to say on that subject. They're hearing all of this stuff. They don't care like that talking point you're giving them. What they care about is that they know you care, that you're a human being, that you have compassion, that you've answered the question in a compassionate and a loving way. It's that John Maxwell saying that people really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We as a movement have to do better with our branding to say, this is what we stand for as a pro-life movement. Yes, we want to make abortion illegal. We want to make it unthinkable because we love people, because we love more, because we care more. So change the way students on your campus think about us. Change what they know about abortion, change the way they think about us. But that doesn't mean you have to go to the other side and say, well, I have to compromise my beliefs on these issues. It just means showing your compassion, showing your humanity. Effective education is very, very simple. I have a saying at the office, and I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying this, but just remember this. Don't be a pansy. Step up, be bold. Don't be afraid, people. We don't have to be afraid because truth is on our side, okay? You next.
My turn? Okay. All right, so I'm going to talk to you. Hello, by the way. Good morning. I just woke up not that long ago, if I'm honest. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about just how your work, how our work collectively has affected the abortion industry. I'm just going to toot our own organization horn for a minute. We've had 419 abortion clinic workers leave the abortion industry since we began. We've had 7 full-time abortion doctors leave their practices. I certainly think that the work that we are doing, and you hear a lot about stigma, like we don't want to increase stigma. Well, we actually do want to increase stigma. If I'm perfectly honest, we want it to be a bad thing to work in abortion clinics. And we want to increase stigma surrounding their work. We want it to be uncomfortable for them to work in an abortion clinic. We want people to look at them and go, really? You work at Planned Parenthood? That's weird. That's exactly what we want. And I think that we're pretty effectively doing that by showing how terrible the abortion industry actually is, in particular Planned Parenthood, showing their dirty clinics, their failed inspection reports, things like that. It's sort of stigmatizing the abortion industry, and that's exactly what we want. We also see a significant number of abortion clinic closures. In 2016, there were 31 abortion facilities that closed. In 2017, there were 21 abortion facilities that closed. 76. This is actually a really cool statistic. 76% of all the clinics that were open in 1991 are now closed. So that's really exciting. Yet we look at Planned Parenthood, their numbers are virtually the same. They're still providing about 321,000 abortions every year. But the interesting thing is that even though they tout healthcare, we're about providing healthcare, they're not doing so much healthcare anymore, right? So how many mammograms did Planned Parenthood provide last year? 0, right? We need to know that because people don't freaking believe it. How many times does somebody come on social media and go, but if Planned Parenthood doesn't get money, where are women going to get mammograms? And number one, you're all 20. You don't need a mammogram. Number two, they don't do it. They never have. They've never provided services like that. We see a decline in their healthcare services, period, overall. They're providing, they've had more than a 60% drop in healthcare services since Cecile Richards became president of Planned Parenthood. More than a 70% drop in these supposed prenatal care services. Let me tell you what a prenatal care service is for Planned Parenthood. If a woman comes in and has a positive pregnancy test and doesn't have an abortion, they consider that prenatal care. Planned Parenthood delivers no babies. There's not a Planned Parenthood clinic across this country that delivers babies. They used to. Actually, when I was there were some clinics that were doing full-scale prenatal care, and they were delivering babies. But they ended up stopping their prenatal care program, citing that pregnant women were too cumbersome. They needed too many visits. They asked too many questions. And so they stopped delivering babies. So yes, a prenatal care service is a woman comes in, she has a positive pregnancy test, and she doesn't schedule that abortion. That's considered prenatal care for Planned Parenthood. So it's important for us to sort of know these facts surrounding Planned Parenthood. How many of you actually looked at Planned Parenthood's annual report? Okay. Every single hand should be raised in this room. You are not going to be effective if you are not educated. You are not going to be able to articulate. You can come to every flipping conference they have here. You can listen to Josh Brahm for 48 hours straight. You can do all of that. You can read every stinking article from Life News and LifeSite News and all those pro-life. You can do all of that. How are we going to win a war if we are not educated about our opponent? And that, you think, nobody likes war, but you think when the United States goes to war with somebody, the generals are like, we don't really know a lot about them, but we're just going to sort of go in and wing it and hope it works out for us. No, right? That would be stupid. Don't be stupid. This is a war. We are fighting a war. And on the field of this war are millions of dead babies. I'm not trying to be your mom or anything, but do your work. Find out what your Planned Parenthood, what your abortion facility in your local community is doing. You know the best way to figure out what they're doing? Go stand in front of it. Guys, I know, we come to these conferences, or you come to these conferences because, you're like, I'm going to go with my friends. It's going to be so fun. And we're going to eat, free Chick-fil-A. And is that what we're having? Chick-fil-A. And it'll be so fun. Then we're going to, be stinky and get on a bus together and ride home. And because none of us have showered. I know the camaraderie, and that's important. That is important. But we're not in this movement. I'm going to be honest with you. We're not in this movement to make buddies. We're in this movement to save babies. And I want to say this too. Look, I personally follow a consistent life ethic. I am vehemently against the death penalty. But at the end of the day, the pro-life movement must be about ending abortion. It must be, because you can follow a consistent life ethic, and I hope that you look into doing that. You can do that personally. But I'm going to tell you this. If we don't begin protecting our most vulnerable, we can't even begin to consider protecting those who are least vulnerable, who are less vulnerable. Sorry. Did I just say born from their mother's womb? Did everybody hear that slip up by President Trump? Anyway, I actually heard torn. from their mother's womb. Maybe he said born. I don't know. Anyway, if we can't protect the most vulnerable in our society, we cannot begin to even protect those that are less vulnerable. We have to go for the most vulnerable first. And there is no group in our society that is more vulnerable than the unborn. And when we protect, I believe that when we end this tragedy and abortion does become unthinkable, and I believe that will happen in my lifetime and yours. Who believes that? I believe when that does happen, then different populations of people will also begin to be protected. We will see other marginalized groups of people become protected, but it must, everything we do must be surrounded with the objective of ending abortion. That's it. That's what the pro-life movement must be about first and foremost. We have to remain focused. We have to remain targeted on that issue. And then all of these other things will fall into place. I believe that wholeheartedly. So keep up what you're doing. We've only got 597 Planned Parenthood facilities left. When I worked at Planned Parenthood, there were over 1,000. So we've almost cut them down by half. You're part of the reason that's happening. But guys, do your work. Know the facts. Know your opponent. Your opponent is Planned Parenthood.
So, who put me after Abby Johnson? She's awesome, right? So, give it up for Abby. That's so exciting, the statistics she talks about and the work she's doing. It's awesome to be on the panel here today. My name's Tyson Langhofer, and I'm an attorney with Alliance Defending Freedom. Specifically, I'm the director of the Center for Academic Freedom. And we defend the freedom of speech and of association of students and faculty at public universities so that everyone can freely participate in the marketplace of ideas without fear of government censorship. Frankly, I have the greatest job in the world because I get to represent students like you every day to make sure that you have the freedom to communicate the pro-life message on your campuses. I absolutely love coming to these conferences and meeting you and hearing about the stories like that you're sharing every day and what you're doing on your campuses. It fires me up, it fires my team up, and it gives me such great hope that this truly is the pro-life generation. So I'm here to talk about public policy on campuses, and you've heard Kristen and Abby talk about the necessary job that you have in order to be educated about the issues. Well, public policy is absolutely necessary for you and your groups to be educated about. So what is public policy? Public policy is just simply government policies on a certain subject, whether that's a law, a regulation, a system of funding. In other words, in order to be an effective pro-life advocate, you need to understand the laws regulating abortion in your state. But you also need to understand what other laws your state could enact, which would reduce the number of abortions in your state. So why is it necessary for you to be aware of your state's current laws on abortion and the other potential laws that are designed to reduce abortion? Frankly, because they work. You've heard Abby and Kristen both talk about the reduction in the number of abortions and the movements we made. And many of the movements we made in the pro-life movement is because of state laws on abortion. State laws that are designed to reduce abortion are working. There's numerous case studies that show the effectiveness of state pro-life legislation. When you look at the abortion movement in general, it seems a little bit overwhelming. How can I work to reverse Roe versus Wade? How can I work to defund Planned Parenthood? But the fact is, the state laws in your local area, where the grassroots efforts are made, we are making great strides there. For example, studies have shown from 92 to 2000, the overall abortion rate declined by about 14%. But the states where they were especially active in enacting pro-life legislation, that they experienced a much larger decrease in abortion. So what that shows us is this wasn't a natural reduction in abortion. That also it came from good pro-life legislation. So let's take an example. Informed consent laws. Those are laws that require women seeking abortions to receive information about public and private sources of support for single mothers, also about health risks of abortion and fetal development. So that same time period, 92 to 2000, 27 states enacted some informed consent law. And the abortion data from the pro-abortion Alan Guttmacher Institute and the CDC both show that informed consent laws reduce the incidence of abortion. So these are effective. This is something you can do to create support for informed consent laws. There's at least 8 studies in peer-reviewed academic journals, including the one in the New England Journal of Medicine, which demonstrate that pro-life parental involvement laws reduce the in-state abortion rate for minors anywhere from 13 to 19%. I'll give you some specifics. Anybody from Mississippi here? All right, Mississippi. All right, so Mississippi's been very, very active, one of the most active states over the last 20 years in enacting pro-life legislation. They have enacted informed consent laws. They've enacted the most protective parental involvement law in the country, which requires the consent of both parents. They've enacted a partial birth abortion ban and a sweeping conscience clause, which allows any medical professional to opt out of participating in an abortion. And from 92 to 2000, those laws served to reduce abortion by 53% in Mississippi. That's awesome, right? That is over 1/2 of abortions, because people like you were working in Mississippi to enact laws that effectively reduced abortion. Let's talk about Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, anybody from Pennsylvania? All right, we got some there. All right, so they enacted one of the most comprehensive informed consent laws early on, and that law was actually challenged, went to the Supreme Court, and then went into effect. But the studies show that reduced abortions by over 24%. South Carolina has a partial birth abortion ban, a parental consent law, an informed consent law, and an act regulating abortion clinics. That reduced abortions from 92 to 2000 over 33%. Finally, the final example, Michigan. In Michigan, there was a partial birth abortion ban. I hear you, Michigan. All right, good group there. Informed consent law, a parental consent law, a ban on public funding, and abortion clinic regulations. And those combined regulations reduced abortion by over 22%. So all those studies show that these laws are working to reduce abortions. But let me tell you another way that we know that these laws are working. These laws mostly, they encourage women to find out more information, to go to the pregnancy resource centers. And we know that these laws are working because there's multiple states now that are enacting laws which are forcing those pregnancy resource centers to advertise, to give free advertisement for abortion clinics. Right? That tells us that our opponents know that those pregnancy resource centers are effective. And they're trying to force them to advertise for the very people that they are working against, the reason that they're there. And we're challenging those laws. ADF has filed a lawsuit on behalf of NIFLA, and there's a case called NIFLA versus Becerra. It's set to go before the Supreme Court here this spring. Right? It's a very important case, and we'd appreciate your prayers, because it is going to determine whether pro-life pregnancy resource centers have the freedom to speak a message that they want to speak and cannot be compelled by the government to speak messages that they don't want to speak, and in fact to speak something that is very against the very core of who they are. So we know that state pro-life legislation is important because it's effective in reducing abortions in your state. You need to be aware of this legislation because you're the voice that can communicate the need for these types of laws on your campus. Just like you need to know about Planned Parenthood and what they're doing, you need to know about the laws in your state. And you need to know about the laws in your state that your state needs to enact to reduce abortions. As members of Students for Life groups on campus, you are viewed as the leaders of the pro-life movement on campus. Students and others will look to you for your opinion on abortion and public policy, and through your group, you can create the grassroots level support on campus for these laws that are effectively reducing abortion in every state in which they're enacted. So if you're interested in learning more about these laws, there's lots of breakout sessions. That's what I love about Students for Life. They give you great education. Take advantage of the resources. Take advantage because they educate you. So we've got all these these breakout sessions. Denise Burke, one of my colleagues, is going to be addressing in more detail some of these state laws so you can get more familiar with it. I'd encourage you to attend some of those. But the second area of public policy that you need to be aware of in order to be effective on campus is what are your First Amendment rights on campus, and whether there are policies on your campus that are violating those rights. You can know all that there is to know about public policy on abortion. However, if you don't have the freedom to communicate that message to others or advocate for the passage of that legislation, your knowledge is useless. So let me give you some real-life examples of how this knowledge of First Amendment rights is important. We represent Norvillia A10 and Queens College Students for Life. I've seen her here today. I know she's here somewhere. Norvillia applied to start a Students for Life group at her campus. The school rejected her application without any explanation. Thankfully, Norvillia was aware of her rights. She knew that the school can't deny her from forming a group on campus simply because they disagree with her viewpoint. So she called us, and we were able to file a lawsuit, and she was able to, they recognized her group, and then they changed the policy on campus so that no other student group will be rejected because of their viewpoint. So you need to know your rights. You need to know when they're being violated because they're trying to stop your message on campus. Give me one more example. Emily Faulkner, president of Students for Life at Colorado State University. Colorado State had a great program, or it appeared to be a great program. It was called a diversity grant. It was designed to pay for groups to bring in speakers with, quote, differing perspectives. So Emily thought, hey, this is great. Pro-life speakers don't come to campus very often. That's a differing perspective. I'd love to bring a pro-life speaker. So she applies for a grant. The school denies it. Here's the reason. The school said, well, I don't know if that speaker is entirely unbiased on the topic of abortion. Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. And maybe that speaker may not make everyone feel affirmed. Yeah, no kidding. That's why you have a differing perspective. But they literally denied her because she was too diverse. All right? Thankfully, Emily knew her rights. Emily knew that the school can't deny funds to student groups because they disagree with their viewpoint. So Emily called us. She called her Students for Life representative, and they said, get in touch with ADF. We filed a lawsuit, and now everybody at Colorado State has the right to apply for funds on their campus. You cannot be effective when you're fighting against groups that get thousands and thousands of dollars, and you're being denied those funds which are set up for you. You can have effective events on campus because there are funds available to you, but they're trying to shut you out of those. So know your rights. Know the public policy surrounding that. So in conclusion, I just want to emphasize that public policy is vitally important to the success of your group. The recent history shows that pro-life legislation is effective and you can make a difference to reduce abortion in your state. And you need to know about your rights, your First Amendment rights, so you can speak on campus. My favorite president is Abraham Lincoln. He has so many great quotes filled with wisdom, and this really tags along with what Abby and Kristen was saying. One of my favorite quotes is this. He says, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Now, sharpening the axe is not the fun part of chopping down the tree, right? We want to wail away on that thing. Let's get to work. Many people may feel like it's wasting time, and they just want to move on to chopping down the tree. That is very ineffective. That's going to be an ineffective way of chopping down the tree with a dull axe. Similarly, if we're going to accomplish the huge task of chopping down the tree of abortion, we have to spend the proper amount of time in preparation by sharpening our axe, our minds, through the gaining of knowledge about public policy. And that's the necessary element to go out and be an effective advocate on your campus. So I challenge you, use the resources Students for Life gives you in learning about public policy on your campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyson. Is anybody ready to start a pro-life revolution? Listen, we are honored to be in First Baptist Church of Glen Arden, and here at this church, they talk back to the speakers with things like, Lori, Amen. So let's try that again, and we'll use a glory on it, okay? Is anyone interested in starting a pro-life revolution on their campus? What a white audience. Okay, anyway. Events and information move today at incredible speed. With social media and technology, something can happen in Southeast Asia this morning and be around the world in hours. This presents unique challenges and opportunities for the pro-life movement, and in particular, your groups on campus. With this almost immediate release of information, it's critical that we don't find ourselves reacting to circumstances or events, but rather we shape and define events that are going on concerning the pro-life movement. For your SFLA groups, we cannot let our opposition define who we are. We must define ourselves. And this has been a serious problem for us. We've allowed the media, the pro-choice movement, to say who and what we are, and then we spend a lot of time defending and reacting to that rather than us defining who and what we are. We control the narrative doesn't control us. To meet, I have to read from paper because I only have a few minutes and I'll end up talking about my Uncle Seamus from Ireland, so I got to stay on point. To meet these unique challenges in 2018, it's critical that we develop a rapid response team on our campus, that we can shape what's going on, that we get the pro-choice community to respond to us, that we define, and I love that, what's happening in our communities, in our schools, and around the world. And there's going to be a great workshop on that this afternoon I would encourage you to go to, and I'm so thankful for these 5 pillars that SFLA is putting together. Your rapid response team should include things like a spokesperson for the group, media contacts, and solid relationships in your community, an immediate way to contact your group and like-minded people on campuses, an open line to SFL leadership and ADF on seeking advice, a core leadership team that can move at a moment's notice. You can't say, when something happens, well, let's get together and have a meeting, and then have coffee, and then have another meeting. It's too late. The event is gone. It's come, and it's gone, and it's been defined by someone other than yourselves. So I'm excited partnering with SFLA. We've had many significant victories in responding and defining the situation, and I'd like to talk about 3 right now. Any University of Alabama students here or no? Well, that's good because I don't like the University of Alabama football program. I just want to go on record. Nick Saban is of the devil. Can I get a witness? Glory. Okay. Anyway, at the University of Alabama, Bama Students for Life set up a pro-life information display in the Student Union Center. And incredibly, in a place, college campuses, where there should be a diverse view of opinions and pluralism and tolerance, the administration said, this display is too offensive. We have to take it down. And it was really the safest, tamest. It was actually really a pretty cheesy display. But anyway, so the administration removed it. The Bama Students for Life got together immediately and framed it as a free speech issue and said our rights as students are being ripped from us. And I flew down. Kristen got involved, the SFLA team. It made all the national press. We had a big rally down there, and can we show the slide of the newspaper article? Students for Life wins First Amendment fight at the University of Alabama. Is that awesome? Is that awesome? Brothers and sisters, can I get a glory out of you? Okay. I think I'm getting blessed up here right now, and I'm a Presbyterian minister. Okay. Did you see that? They responded, First Amendment victory. So beautiful. The campus groups that disagreed with them came up and said, we were so thankful that you stood for us. I'm sure all of us know David Daleiden with the Center for Medical Progress, and you're admired and respected when you just announce someone's name and they get a hand applause. David, amazingly, was charged with crimes for doing what he did in Houston, Texas, in Harris County. Part of it was, the lies, fake driver's license. We did our research, by the way. Not once in the whole history of Houston, Texas, has anyone ever been charged with a fake driver's license. I mean, if that were the case, every freshman in college would be in prison in Houston right now. But they said he lied. We got there the first day. SFLA responded. Other groups responded. The first day, it's called an arraignment, where they present the charges. We had 100,000 petitions. We came out and had a massive news conference. We called and exposed that the Harris County prosecutor going after David had accepted money from abortion providers. We had this major event. We didn't let the media define the event. We defined the event. Here's, can we add there? There's the slide up there. First 100,000 petitions to drop charges. Okay, let's put up the next slide from the New York Times. Last charges dropped against abortion pros in making of Planned Parenthood video. All the charges against David were dropped in Houston, Texas. Can I get a witness, brothers and sisters? I think with this crowd, we need to take an offering right now. I mean, SFLA's rapid response changed the entire course and protected the First Amendment and this incredible, heroic figure in our movement and citizen journalism. Finally, a Chinese human rights activist, Chen Guangchen, a blind human rights activist who fought to protect women from forced abortion. China's very near and dear to me. I led demonstrations there, human rights demonstration, the first ever public demonstration in Tiananmen Square for the students who were massacred there, speaking out. In fact, for that, I'm actually banned from China. I was arrested. No, I'm banned from China. But I'm going to get back. You're clapping that I'm banned from China. Glory, can I get a witness? You got a bunch of weird student leaders here. Okay. So we knew, listen to this Chen Guangchen. He's blind. China has the largest military in the world. They guarded him 24/7. Did I mention Chen Guangchen is blind? He escapes from his house. He's blind. He makes his way and gets in the U.S. Embassy. President Obama was in the White House then. Secretary Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State who happened to be in China. And they were thinking his wife was beaten. And we had to have a rapid response to protect this great fighter of human rights and freedom. We couldn't wait. We couldn't gather at some hipster coffee shop and have a meeting and decide, what are we going to do? So we organized events at the White House and at college campuses around the country. Can we put up that first slide? And we were arrested peacefully in front of the White House. You see me right there, and you see the lovely Tina with the Free Chen sign. We had students all across America. Can we go to the next slide? We had glasses just like Chen Guangchen. That's not Tina doing a Stevie Wonder impersonation and we were there in front of the White House speaking to, right away, the first day, the very first day. I am delighted to report that Chen Guangchen was released. His family was allowed to come to America, and he is fighting the fight for human freedom and dignity and rights here because of the response. Brothers and sisters, even if you're not brothers and sisters, we need to we're all one big family. We cannot be defined by our opposition, but we must define who and what we are in this great struggle for human rights and social justice. And my prayer and hope is that abortion will end up on the scrap heap of history like slavery and segregation. May God bring it to pass. God bless you. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, I got multiple devices going on. Two doors. One door is Planned Parenthood. The other door is the local pregnancy help center. Let me give you the reality. More than 9 out of every 10 pregnant women that walk through the door of Planned Parenthood will walk out without their baby. If the same pregnant woman walks through a pregnancy help center, 9 out of 10 of those babies will survive. This is the power of support services. This is the power of the network that's grown up over time to really demonstrate love and compassion for those who are in difficult places. Kristen talked about earlier, they won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And pregnancy help work has grown up over the last 45 years, nearly 50 years. And we need to know that. And one of the things that I'm asked is, well, aren't pregnancy centers hard to find? And this is the first myth I want to talk about. Help for those facing unintended pregnancy are hard to find. Yeah, not so much. Not so much. 2,752 pregnancy help centers around the U.S. How many of you know where yours is near you? Okay, every hand should go up in this situation because those are the folks that are making it happen. Those are the folks that will sit knee to knee and nose to nose and share the love of God and the power of life and the beauty of what's happening in that person's life. They're the ones that will make that happen. And you can find out who those are through Option Line, which is optionline.org. Everybody should know that. You might have seen the 800 number, 800-712-HELP. That's the number that gets the Option Line, gets people connected to the local pregnancy help center. There's been this big thing that's been going on, and this is old news. This is an old playbook from back in the days of the abortion business. They want to talk about pregnancy help centers are fake clinics. Okay? Yeah, not so much. Fake clinics is fake news. And I've seen a couple of examples of this happen. I've watched the undercover video. This is, we're really going to get in on the inside of the pregnancy center. And you see this grainy video, which, David did it so much better. It's a grainy video inside the center. And they're interviewing someone, and they're talking to this person. And the narrator is saying, these clinics present themselves as if they don't have medical professionals. And by the way, the person on the video has this little button that says registered nurse, which the last time I checked was actually a healthcare professional. And that happens many times. In fact, if you were paying attention, this last July, this wonderful group called Lady Parts Justice League launched this big thing called Expose Fake Clinics against pregnancy centers all over the nation. And they went to first one they went to was in Pittsburgh, and they were a video crew, and they were out there making a big deal, talking about this is a fake clinic. They don't have healthcare people. And the nurse was standing right there going, excuse me, I work there. Another center saw them coming, and they had signs. They were waiting for them. They had signs that says, I am not a fake nurse, and I am not a fake doctor. Fake clinics is fake news. Know it yourself. One of the other myths about pregnancy centers is they don't need students like you. They do. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. You are the very type of person that can come in and help them in many various ways. You can help them know more about their target audience. You can help them in immeasurable ways to really understand their own marketing. Because, frankly, a lot of them don't understand the marketing like you do. And you can help them with that. You can encourage them. You can bring your own skills to the table. Whatever you're doing and wherever you're doing it, you can come to the center. At least know them. Get to know them. Let me tell you, the power of the pregnancy help centers is that once every 4 minutes, a baby is being saved from abortion through the Pregnancy Help Network. And that's a good number, but that's not enough, and we need to do more. And so that's why pregnancy centers always need help. Get involved, get engaged, know the folks near you. If you do nothing else, stop and visit, bless them, say, we're here for you. We're going to be doing our thing on campus. We're going to reach out as we can on campus. One of the most powerful things I want you to walk away with is the very best alternative to abortion is another person. Because while we need public policy and while we need rapid responses and while we need education going on, every day there are close to 3,000 women waking up thinking the only path I have before me is abortion. They can't wait for some of these policy things to happen. They can't wait for those things to kick in. They need someone who will see their situation, enter into their environment, and encourage them to walk through the right door. Because if we don't get them in the one door, then they might find their ways to the other. And so any chance you get to speak life, to be that warm, compassionate outreach to someone else, you need to do, and take their hand and connect it to the hands of those in the pregnancy center. But let me tell you a little secret. We love to talk about babies saved. We love it. 1 every 4 minutes is great. The reality is, not one of us has saved a baby. What we do and what you can do is help her save her baby. Because that's what it takes, a loving compassion, an outreach, a blessing, speaking life into them, believe in them. The most powerful gift you can give another person is the gift of believing in them and saying, I believe you. I believe you can do it. And that's what I believe you can. You can do this. So I want to encourage you, if you know nothing else about this day, know it's option line. Come on now. Come on. Anyway, optionline.org. That's where you can find a center all across the nation. Love to have that increase. It's okay. Love to have that go up. Know it. 800-712-HELP, optionline.org. We can be the compassionate feet and the support services. We need to do all of this. But don't forget that she needs to know that there's some place she can go to get life-affirming help for someone that will champion the gift of life and the giver of life. Thank you very much.